From the News Channel 8 studios, this is Let's Talk Live.
People always say that honesty is the best policy, but following through on that old adage is where people have a tough time.
So true. And there are, though, a few things that you can do to encourage people to be honest to you. Communication expert Stephen Gaffney is back with us today, and he's going to help explain this. Hi, Stephen.
Hi. How are you?
Summer going well?
It is.
Good summer. Are you telling me the truth?
Well, the truth is, no.
Hey, that is so true, though. Many of us are it's just a normal thing. We're not completely honest in our daily conversations.
Yeah, here's the deal. Everybody lies. Everybody lies. My favorite statistic on this is they did a study a while back, and they said that 93% of people lie regularly. 93%. I actually think the other 7% in the study lied. Everybody lies. You know, how are you doing? And you don't want to get into it, so you say everything's fine. Things of that nature. Here's the big problem. The big problem isn't about this truth or ethics deal. The big problem is not what people say, it's actually what they don't say to each other. It's where we think, why didn't they just tell us? I could have done something about it. In fact, I'd like to just pause and just say, to a serious note, about Robin Williams. You know, here's a guy who gave so much joy in this world, and he died of sadness. But here's what I'd like to leave people with. Maybe we could do something about this. Do you know more people die of suicide than murder? And here's the value of what I'm saying. We can do something about it. If we make people feel comfortable and they can really share things, we can help them. So, you know, when I was coming on the show, I was thinking about, you know, how we often laugh about a lot of things, and we still will laugh, I promise. But, you know, when we look at situations like Robin Williams and we think about this thing, and when we think about marriage is still at 50% divorce rate, when are we going to start to realize that the big problem is not what people say, it's actually what they don't say to each other. And if we make people feel safe, they're more likely to tell us the truth, which means we can do something about it.
So how do you get a person into that position of feeling safe?
Well, first we have to look at what we're doing to instill what I call the fear factor in others. Have you ever had somebody say, listen, you can tell me the truth, I want to hear what you have to say. And then you give them some criticism and they flip out? Next time they ask you for feedback, what do you say? Forget it, I'm not going to go there. You know, but think about parents with their children. They say, oh, I want you to do this, but then they freak out when their child tells them the truth. And this leads to another thing.
Always come to me, and then the child says, I did this, Mom or Dad. And then they
freak out.
You did what? Yeah.
Please, tell me the truth. What?
Exactly.
Well, do you blame us for lying then? No. No.
And there lies the truth, right?
Right. All right, so the question Kelly had, how do you make somebody, what do you say to somebody to make them feel safe and wanted and appreciated and so that they are comfortable in having the truth shared?
Well, there are 5 critical factors. So the first thing is we've got to make people feel safe. And the way is to look at our reaction and make sure that when we hear something we don't like, we don't flip out on them.
Control your reaction.
Absolutely. Second is we need to model the behavior we seek in others. We need to set the example. As Gandhi said, be the example you want in the world. Now, this is simple to understand, but not easy to execute. Here's an example. You say to your child, listen, don't tell mommy or daddy. You know, or you say to somebody, listen, a coworker, I'm telling you, but I shouldn't be telling you. What they're just demonstrating is they can't be trusted because they're breaking confidentiality. Here's the point. We say these things, but we model behavior that basically encourages lying about people withholding. And I want to come back to these situations. We can do something about it. You know, there was a study done a while back that showed that 80% of workplace problems are due to lack of honesty, because when we hear about the problems, we can deal with things. So the first thing we need to do, if you're a leader in an organization or you're a leader at home, and we're all leaders in some capacity, is we need to ask ourselves, are we walking our talk? And the truth is that often when we really look at things, we are not. But the good news is we can do something about it by modeling certain behaviors, and one of them is to share difficult things. To say to people, listen, I want to hear your honesty, and I'm willing to share some things that are kind of vulnerable.
It's all in the delivery.
Absolutely.
But are you worried about hurting people's feelings? I mean, say I got my haircut. And I say, hey, got a new haircut. What do you think? And you're thinking, oh, that looks horrible.
I would try to find something I liked about it. I would give her I'd be honest about the part of it that I liked. I probably wouldn't tell her the bad part.
I know, and people say that all the time, and all I can say is, how's that working, right? But there is, to your point, there is a difference between honesty and brutality. But you raise a really important point, which is the third thing about what we can do. Ask for what we want. but we have to be careful that if we ask for something, are we willing to hear the truth? So are we really asking, how do I look, and willing to hear the truth, or we only want one option? For example, have you ever had somebody ask you a question and you can tell there's only one right answer?
And you usually give them the answer they're looking for.
That's true.
But so you say, well, what's the harm in that? Well, here's the harm in that, is that let's say you're having a problem in your marriage and you're wondering, how's my marriage? And you want to say to your spouse, how are we doing? Do you still love me? Do you care? Well, of course, if there is problems in the marriage, the person's first thinking is, can I really share the truth? And then they're thinking, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. So we all have developed excuses why we're not speaking the truth, but here's the reality. We cannot fix a problem that nobody tells us about, right? You can't move on an issue if they don't tell us, and we can't use somebody's idea if they don't tell us. So really it goes back to that getting the unsaid said, really having people say the truth, but that goes back to, if we're going to ask for it, are we willing to hear the truth?
Very good point.
How do we, well, we're getting a time cue, but really quick, how do we reward that honesty?
Yeah, that's actually one of the last ones. So the fourth one was train and condition people, and we can talk about that another time. But reward honesty, and that is we need to thank people. When they give us some criticism, even if it's what we don't like, we need to thank them, not debate them. So here's the easiest way to think about this. When somebody gives you a lot of feedback, maybe it is ill intent, it could be, but soak it in like a sponge and wring out what you don't like and what is not useful. But if you start debating them, they'll think, see, you try to give that person honesty feedback and they flip out, they don't like it, and then they just say forget it.
Well, we are honestly out of time today, Steve. We appreciate all your great comments. Thanks so much for joining us.